in downtown Portland, Oregon. The world wishes it was here, but we are here. Make some noise. That's what it's all about. You know, if it's time to laugh, you laugh. If you want to jeer, jeer. If you want to clap, clap. We got a mic down here. If you think you know anything better than we do, which doesn't take a whole lot, because all we show is what's behind the news. We're showing the truth. We're like one step over the lights. We're always on the edge. Now, in this part of the show, we like to talk about the stories that I love and that I hate. Well, I hate a lot of shit, and I love a lot of things. And the story that I like the most of the last week is a story that we've been talking about and predicting for some time. The day after our show last week, the market crashed a little bit. First little blip, right? And where did that come from? China! Right, and what was China trying to do? They were making these motions about, oh, I think we're going to pull out of our Fed notes. I think we might go into the euro. Okay? So somebody rattled the big Chinese cage. Here at Ground Zero News, we know, we think we know, we smell who those people are. Most of them congregate in a place called the City, which, for those of you who don't know, is actually inside the City of London, but a city unto itself. In the city, they print up the money, the fiat money, for the globe, and charge every government interest on it. Do you think they're interested in Chinese intervention in their little hegemony? Not at all. So it was just calling a little bit of warning, and suddenly the dollar is a little bit safer until it's not. Now I want to invite you again. Oh, everybody's had it so horrific. I want to invite you again to come up to the mic and tell us what stories blew your mind during the week. Anything interesting? Huh? Glenn, what is it during the last week that said, this sounds fishy, this isn't right? If I find myself at Ground Zero Lounge, I'm going to talk about it. I want to welcome, there's some old faces, some new faces tonight. Well, for nobody, the mic is there when the moment is right. Here we go. You're on global internet. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, well, I know you guys are always talking about the Antichrist, so I figured you might dig this.
Okay.
Did you hear about Britney Spears?
Tell us.
Okay, well, first she freaks out, shaves her head. She's gone to rehab like 7 times. She freaked out with an umbrella at a bunch of trucks. So, reports just came out that while in rehab, she sketched 666 into her head and screamed, "I am the Antichrist," and then tried to kill herself.
Super. You heard it first at Ground Zero Lounge. Now, doesn't that prove the point? That's what we call connecting the dots. When you have a mindless idiot who's commanded the attention of the world for the last 6 months with crotch shots and who knows what. I mean, she's literally become the whipping boy or girl of the world. And why? There's a moral lesson here, because she was nothing to begin with. They raised her up and they brought her down. You think America might follow the same path? Huh? The same forces. Bring them up, put them down. It's called pump and dump. Pump it, it's an old banker dictum. You can see it in the stock markets. You raise them up and you sell them short. But guess what? It still gets a lot of press, right? Favorite story. Favorite story. There's another story we were talking about before, and it has to do with chess. Brzezinski, you recall, during the 80s, talked about the great chessboard. And he was talking about the oil reserves of the Near East. And it's not just Iraq and Iran, but also Kazakhstan and a lot of the Soviet Union republics. In fact, in the 80s, that's what they were going for. That's why they brought the wall down, was to get the oil in southern Russia. But now, of course, it has something of a different meaning. The chess pieces. Who are the pawns? Who are the knights? Who are the bishops? Who are the rooks? It's all a chess game. But the question is it played by grandmasters or by idiots? We're not really sure. But to bring you up to date, I'd like to bring you the ground of Ground Zero. Clyde Lewis. Oh.
Welcome everybody to Ground Zero Lounge. I'm Clyde Lewis, and we are so happy to be here tonight, especially when everyone around the world is seeing us online. Thank you, Robert, so much for videotaping these shows. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. Give Robert a hand. Boy, you just kicked it out with Britney Spears tonight, right off the bat. Britney Spears. Now, I was reading about that whole situation with her trying to commit suicide, putting a big 666 in her forehead and hanging herself with a sheet. They said that she was screaming out demonically. That she had like this demonic scream, and they didn't know what to do. I mean, she's freaking out, right? And I started reading a little bit. I mean, there are a lot of people who are freaking out right now. I mean, Ann Coulter is another example of freaking out, right? She calls John Edwards a faggot. She said, do you think they'll send me to rehab if I call John Edwards a faggot? And I thought, do you think they'll send me to rehab if I call her a bitch? Fuck her, right? But Britney Spears is a sad situation, I'll tell you why. How many people have been to the shows when I started talking about the sex slaves? The monarch sex slaves by applause. Anybody? Does anybody know what tattoo Britney Spears has on her body? She has a monarch butterfly tattooed on her body.
The monarch.
Now, Project Monarch, for those of you that don't know, and I'll educate you if you don't know, Project Monarch is a little bit like what you saw tonight with the Jesus Camp situation. They bring children into these areas and they basically train them not to be Jesus freaks. They train them to be sex slaves for the CIA. That's what people like Arizona Wilder and David Icke have talked about. That they've trained these children to become sex slaves for the CIA, and then what happens is that they mold them into these sex goddesses or these sex people. They were talking about Michael Jackson being one of them, and Britney Spears and Anna Nicole Smith being one of them, and several other people. There are books out there by Arizona Wilder and several other people who claim that they were a part of this big sex slave ring. I talked a little bit about that. I talked about the Franklin cover-up. I talked about the big sex ring that happened in the 1980s with the White House. And I talk about this stuff, and I say that I was involved in an investigation into the sex trade in Southeast Asia, and no one wants to hear about it because what it does is it pinpoints some of the higher elite as being people who like sex slaves and create these sex slaves for their own gain. Remember last week I was talking about Anna Nicole Smith and the clown face. How many people saw that finally on the internet after I talked about it? That whole segment where Howard K. Stern is talking and saying, Ashley says you're out of your mind. Are you on a mushroom trip? Are you on a mushroom trip? That whole thing is just scary and peculiar because she's wearing that clown face. That pointy-faced clown face. That same image that I was talking about back in October here at Ground Zero Lounge. With the images of that weird death face. It was almost as if that was her last death march with that clown face. Because clowns, the reason why a lot of people don't know why they're afraid of clowns is because clowns literally represent the face of the Wendigo, the face of death, the face of hunger before the consumption of the body. They were actually symbols of death at one time. And then they evolved into being symbols of happiness and funniness. But see, behind the mask, we really don't see the clown dying inside. We really don't see the falling apart, the face of the homunculus, or the face of the creature that is really, really frightened and scared and wanting to go. Britney Spears was another one of those types of people that were raised up for the very reason that a lot of people wonder, is she one of these sex goddesses that were brought forward to please those who are in the higher ups? In the elite. I don't know if these whole sex slave rings are real. I do know, however, that people like Jean-Benet Ramsey and others are all tokens and images and archetypes that lead to that sort of mentality. They lead to the mentality of the mental slave, or being programmed to do certain things at certain times. Britney Spears may very well have a trigger that makes her think she's the Antichrist. She may be falling apart because she's been programmed to do all the things she's done, and then when she's through, they eat her up, they spit her out, and then it's over. Like with a lot of child stars that raised in the ranks as sex symbols. I mean, you take a look like the Olsen twins. I wonder about them sometimes. I wonder where they're going to end up. Little clones that have been, basically do absolutely nothing.
On the pole.
Yeah, they're going to be on the pole. I mean, they've done absolutely nothing since, was it show Family Ties? Does it show their honor? Full House. Family Ties, Full House, Family Values. Anyway, meanwhile, all these pedophiles are like waiting until they turn of age so that when they masturbate to them on the computer, they won't feel so goddamn guilty about it. That's the whole idea behind these sex slaves, is to create that kind of image. People like Anna Nicole Smith had a tragic life. Britney Spears now apparently is having a tragic life. What, as Sarah was telling me, 2 babies in how long? 2 babies in a year. That's all she knows how to do is make babies and bad records. I mean, it's really frightening to take a look at that. But see, at the Ground Zero Lounge, we've talked about this for some time. All this building and all this talking about this stuff, and people all going, well, it's crazy. Why are you talking about it? Because now the unfolding and the unraveling is taking place, which I talked about last week. The unraveling of the hyper-reality is taking place right now. The illusion is being lifted, and the reality is everything in your life has been an illusion. Everything in your life has been programming to some degree. And you need to deprogram yourself from the lies. How many people are aware of the news story that's been floating around about 9/11? Anybody? Which one? Okay. How many people? Yeah, everybody's got their idea of what's going on with 9/11.
Yeah, well, about today.
World Trade Center 7. Is that, you know about what's going on? He knows. Anybody else know about it? What's going on with World Trade Center 7 and the BBC? Do you know? Want to come up and talk about it? All right, come up to the microphone. This is the most amazing thing. If you want to follow a total clusterfuck, okay? I mean, and that word just fits this perfectly. A total clusterfuck with regards to 9/11 and the lies that they've been telling people about what happened on that day. Go ahead.
Well, some people, they discovered some BBC tapes that were done that day. They have an announcer standing in front of Building 7 saying the building has already collapsed, and yet it's still behind them there. They come back, they flip off that for a second, they come back a minute later. Now the thing is indeed come down, and they say Building 7 has fallen down. The BBC did everything. As soon as this video hit the internet, the BBC went out, they purposely scrubbed it as quick as they could from all sites, Google Video, InfoWars, all places they could find it. They were claiming they couldn't use it because it was their property. Then, just a day or two later, when they basically claimed that they had lost all their video from 9/11 that day. They claimed, they actually said that we lost all the video from 9/11, you know, and who can believe that story?
And another thing they did too is they came up with a retraction, a point-by-point retraction saying, well, we're not a part of a conspiracy theory. In fact, we just did a 9/11 piece saying that the conspiracy theorists are all whack jobs and blah, 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 blah. But then, what they didn't count on was the people were paying attention to the report 20 minutes before Building 7 came down, that they were reporting while this reporter was standing with Building 7 right behind her. They didn't know what Building 7 was. In fact, they call it the Solomon
Building.
Yeah, the Solomon Building.
Which is the same building.
It's the same building. And she's standing there saying, we've just got word that the building has now collapsed and it was due to damage caused from the planes hitting the building, and now it's all coming. And it didn't come down. It was 20 minutes before. Not only that, but did you know that Aaron Brown, when he was at CNN, did the same thing? He announced that the WTC-7 came down 20 minutes prior to the building actually coming down.
Well, in addition to that, there's innumerable people, especially among the firefighters, ambulance people, who say they were told ahead of time it was falling, it was coming down.
Right. And of course, Silverstein, the guy, Larry Silverstein,
He pulled it.
said on a PBS special that he ordered it to be pulled. And then he turned around and he said, well, when I said pull it, I didn't mean demolish it. No, it meant something totally different. Well, what the hell did he mean?
Just as the thing that makes all this so important is the fact that in order to pull a building like that, it takes literally weeks to set the explosive charges that allow it to happen. Mm-hmm. And therefore that means that Building 7 had to already have had the explosives put in them, just like the towers themselves.
Exactly. So there you have it, the story. Yeah, go ahead. That is something that if you want to go home and research this, just type in WTC. You're going to have a hard time finding the video, though. In fact, I put it in my forum, which, by the way, I want to let you know, tonight, when you get home or when you get some time, I want you to go to groundzeromedia.org, and I want you to register in my new forum and do discussions in the new forum. We had to discontinue the old one because we moved our website to groundzeromedia.org. That way you can sign up and get involved in the discussions. People like Jeff Rentz have their news stories out in front. I put mine in my forum because I think it's better that people go into the forum and do discussions and discuss them rather than having everybody go after them. Because I think that what we have is the discussions going on in the forum are far more detailed than anything you could get anywhere else. So sign up for the forum. All you gotta do is just go to groundzeromedia.org, go to forum, sign up, and then you'll be able to get involved in the discussion there. The situation is this. There are so many things that I myself can tell you. But the only way people can get involved in discussions and know what's going on when they get here to the lounge is to go to the websites, listen to the OmniSound Radio 1 broadcasts, the quick takes, the reruns of the shows, the things we've talked about in the past, and watch the videos that are on Google Video. You can see and review the lounges. I'm going to talk about a review, something that Robert had put up that now is getting a lot of attention. I'm going to tell you more about that coming up.
I just want to think, that's a great discussion on Building 7, and I wanted to take that to a theory I had on the World Trade Centers, whereas if a plane or something crashes in the World Trade Center, or there's an earthquake or something like that in New York, and the building is teetering and tottering and is basically a dead building, there's no hope for the building, then instead of having it teeter and totter and fall into Soho or Greenwich Village and just killing lots of people, wouldn't make a lot of sense to demolish the building by controlled demolition and bring the building down.
It would.
And if you take that idea to the entire events of 9/11, then does that mean that the White House was lined to be controlled demolition? If something happened to the White House, would the White House come out?
Actually, the theory is that the plane that was headed towards the White House was not heading towards the White House. It was heading towards Building 7. Because what was housed in Building 7? CIA, the NSA, the Securities Exchange Commission, all those names of the people that use those PUT stocks that got all that money from the loss they got from United and American Airlines, all those names gone, all the possible terrorist names that could have been involved in 9/11 destroyed, all those records destroyed. To cover up the tracks, cover up the evidence.
Well, I was thinking too, with Homeland Security, is it possible that all targets, Empire State Building, Sears Tower, all these targets would then be designed to be demolished?
Do they have explosives already in them?
If there's another terrorist attack.
That could be true.
I think
that could be very true.
One theory that seemed plausible to me was that the building number 7 was a command center, and that's why they had to destroy the evidence.
Exactly. But
I thought you were trying to pull the building like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Like pull it back. That's what he meant.
no, that's what you thought?
I'm kidding.
Pull it back, it's gonna fall, it's gonna blow. But see, this type of stuff being revealed and unraveling is something that I think is wonderful. And it needs to be talked about, and the word needs to be spread about, and someone needs to host that video so it will never be taken down. And sure, they'll sue, they'll get all pissed off, or what have you. But see, the internet is continually bringing that to you. And I can only bring you the information that I receive. And I can talk about this stuff, and I can sound crazy,
And I can relate, there's so many things I go off on different tangents on, and I look back and I say, God, I wish I could focus, but there's so many things I need to get in an hour. There's so many things on the Rick Emerson show that I have to get in 10 minutes. There's so many things I can only do on the internet, like my last quick take is not quick, it was 23 minutes long. Of course, the theme of it was 23, the number 23, so it was kind of advantageous, and it was not on purpose that I did that 23, by the way. It actually happened. I'm going, whoa, you gotta be kidding me. But what I want to point out to you is something that's happened within the past month. Now, some of you were here on February 5th. How many people by applause were here on February 5th? Now, that show is online, and you can watch that show. But the reason why I point out the February 5th show, as opposed to any other shows we've done here at Ground Zero Lounge, is because the February 5th show has gotten a lot of attention nationwide. I've gotten more emails and more people concerned about what we talked about here on that February 5th show. Because what it was basically the summation of all the other shows that we did prior. How many here were here for the show, the MLK show, by applause? Not very many? Okay. How many here were when I was talking about the King Killed 33 Degrees show, when I was talking about John Shelby Downard's essay? Okay. All of these things, though, I was bringing up because they were top of the mind to me, and I thought there was something that we needed to talk about. So what I have to do right now is I have to go back to basics for you, for those of you that aren't aware of these shows that we did, and get right to the crux of it all. I did a show a while back about John Shelby Downard, who was a conspiracy theorist. He was an American conspiracy theorist who was exposed to the KKK and Freemasonry in the Deep South. He was a guy that had theories about the number 33 and something called the King Kill at 33 degrees. He came up with this notion that whenever the Illuminati or the Masonic orders decide to commit murder, they do it in number sequences. They do it in 33s. He talks about the 33 degrees of Masonry. He talks about how the KKK itself is the 11th, the K, K, and the K. The 11th letter of the alphabet is 3 Ks or 3 11s adding up to 33. He talks about the number 311. He talks about the number 33. He talks about the number 23. He talks about how a lot of the events of the world happened in the 33rd parallel. The testing of the nuclear bomb happened in the 33rd parallel in New Mexico. He talks about how when the Nagasaki bombs were thrown, they were thrown in the 33rd degree parallel. A lot of other people have extended it now, saying that when we attacked Iraq, that was in the 33rd parallel. That whole area is considered the 33rd parallel. So the 33rd north latitude, whether it be the United States or whether it be another area on the map. A lot of things, a lot of significant things have happened right there in that 33 degrees. He talks about how Truman was the 33rd president of the United States, a 33rd degree Mason, dropped the bomb on the 33rd parallel of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, causing the big explosion and the big disaster. Talks about how Kennedy was shot in Dallas, Texas, at the 33rd degree parallel. That Roswell, the aliens, allegedly crash landed in the area that's known as the 33rd degree parallel. The nuclear bomb was tested in the area of the 33rd degree parallel. All these 33s, this guy was obsessing about these numbers. He had some sort of psychotic break where he kept thinking about how these 33 degrees is crucial to what the Illuminati's plans are. And he was talking about how the 33 is also 2 3s, getting into Discordianism, talking about the number 23, and the number 666, and all these other weird numbers that were out there. And I sat there on the February 5th show talking about numbers, rattling off numbers, rattling off 911s and 311s and 666s and 333s, and I was going crazy on stage. And I didn't know where it was headed. I didn't know where it was headed. But I do know that I was talking about King Kill 33. There's actually a Marilyn Manson song. How many people listen to Marilyn Manson? I do. Okay. There's a Marilyn Manson song called King Kill 33. And it's based on James Shelby Downard's book, essay, King Kill 33, which was featured in the book Apocalypse Culture. And I talked about Martin Luther King, and I called it the King Kill 33 show because Martin Luther King was killed. And he was a divine king. It was called the Ritual of the Divine King. Talk about that, Larry, would you? Tell us
Ritual of the Divine King.
Ritual of the Divine King.
Well, the Ritual of the Divine King is an ancient ritual. It exists in many different cultures. But originally it was associated with the seasons, with agriculture, to the point where a king was chosen and had to be ritually slaughtered in order for the seasons to bear fruit. So that originally in a matriarchal society, the king was a chosen consort and had to die. After that period of time, he figured out, well, maybe I don't have to die. I'll have a substitute for me. And now we're talking about simulacrum. In other words, somebody who looks like a king and is sacrificed in the king's place.
Right. And we talk about Princess Diana and how she might be the simulacrum of a divine king, and she was sacrificed for that very reason. Because they still do the divine king right, or the divine princess or queen right as well. Getting rid of or sacrificing someone almost like a Christ or a Messiah or a messianic figure. Someone who is a leader who can be considered a king is sacrificed at 33 degrees, 33 years of age, like Jesus Christ died at 33. One of the popes was off after 33 days. I mean, he said that this was a ritual. A ritual that continues on to this day.
And the worst thing that can happen is if George Bush becomes sacrificed at 33 degrees on some 33. That would be the epitome.
Or how about Dick Cheney? How many people follow the news? It was a couple months ago, I got up here and I said that the King Killed 33 ritual is about to take place again. Or the attempt is about to be made. Now I thought the Pope would be the guy. He'd be perfect for the job. But it wasn't the Pope. Nothing happened. Nothing weird happened. I was wrong. But how many people heard the story about Dick Cheney? Yeah? Dick Cheney was in Afghanistan. How many people know where Afghanistan sits in the North Parallel? Sits on the 33-degree North Parallel. Now he was near Kabul, which is about 34 degrees, but he was 33 in Afghanistan. Okay? Guess how many people died in that mishap? 23 people died. 23 people died. 33 degrees, 23, chaos, and also the number of the ritual sacrifice, which Shelby Downer talks about. Now, this is Shelby Downer talking. A guy who was in the KKK, and a guy that was in the upper Masonic echelons, according to what he writes. And he had a vivid imagination, believe me. He had a vivid imagination, and he saw these numbers, and he was perplexed and fixed on these numbers. He had this psychotic break that just blew all the time, but it checks out. And if you believe it, that's fine. If you don't believe it, that's fine, but it's still one of those weird quirks that are strange. Now, we had talked about Kennedy being assassinated because of the fact that Shelby Downer was talking about Kennedy being the one who was the divine king that was shot in 33 degrees. Now, the Cheney story happened after we discussed this, but he wasn't killed. He wasn't killed, he almost was, and now we hear in the news that he's got a blood clot in his leg. Who knew? He might be dead later on, who knows? He might be dead now for all we know.
That'd be great.
I don't think anybody would be sad about that, would they? Ooh. I heard somebody say that'd be great. But in the meantime, how many people, after we did the whole King Kill thing, talking about the Kennedy assassination, which I don't talk about much because it's one of those conspiracy theories that you get lost in all the theories, piled on the theories. How many people know about what came about in the news just 2 or 3 weeks after we talked about that? The Kennedy footage. You guys remember that? The new footage? The new footage that they released 40 years after the fact, showing somebody in the book depository. And new audio where you're hearing these robotic sounding cops going, the president had a gunshot wound in the head. Mrs. Kennedy said, oh no, and his head went forward and blood was all over Mrs. Kennedy. That's exactly how it sounds. It almost sounds like it was faked. But see, they're bringing up all of these divine kings, the Kennedys, the Princess Dianas of the world, all of these people, pretext, exactly. It's to hide the reality of what is to come. The fall of the blonde princess, Anna Nicole Smith. The other fall of the blonde princess, Britney Spears. This whole monarch gradual unraveling, this whole idea that everything that you've been seeing is programmed and it's all out there for you to look at. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, what you need to do is you need to read about what they believe. See, they dance in front of owls in the spring with a little effigy burning underneath the foot of an owl at a Bohemian Grove. Okay? They're the ones that believe in all these Templar tantrum stories, the Priory of Zion. They believe that Jesus Christ is found in a tomb somewhere in Israel. James Cameron's story. He's going to make a new movie. I guess they call it A Tomb with a Jew. I don't know. Yeah. But still, it all is unraveling. The idea that your Jesus is wrong, the idea that the resurrection is wrong, the idea that your divine kings are not so divine. It's just, the unraveling is taking place very, very, very rapidly. And for some odd reason here at the lounge, we've discussed all this stuff, but it's now happening in sequence. From the Kennedys to the Anna Nicole Smiths, the tortured souls, the tortured sex slaves, if you will. Moving on down the line till we get to the idea that Dick Cheney was in the 33rd parallel and he almost got taken out by a bomb. We were talking about the possibility of the bomb theme running through television and running through all of your presentations and all of your movies. You were talking about 24, right?
Yep.
That was on the February 5th show. February 5th show, he was talking about the movie 24 and how there's a conditioning process going on with a bomb going off and the vice president is, go ahead and refresh our memories on this, because people are going to go back to that February 5th show online. I want them to hear what you had to say.
I've only watched through the second season, but the first two plot lines involved an assassination attempt against the first black president, or first man who's likely to become president who was black. And then the second one about a government conspiracy to sneak a nuclear warhead into the United States and have them catch it at the last minute so that they could then go on about a huge military buildup and invade another country as a pretext.
Right. There you go. All the conditioning is going on, and we talk about it here at Ground Zero Lounge. We talked about it on February 5th, what a difference a month makes, how all these things start transpiring. It's not because we're psychic, it's because we can see the patterns going on, we can see the ripples happening, and if you follow along, like you connect the dots, you can pretty well figure out what the next step is going to be. How many people remember the Aqua Teen Hunger Force scare? By applause. That's what kicked this off. On the February 5th show that is online right now, I began talking about the Aqua Teen Hunger Force at approximately 23 minutes into the program. Now, I did not know this. Someone online went into the Google site and manually put 23 minutes into a blog post. And if you click on that, it takes you immediately to 23 minutes into presentation on February 5th when I start talking about the Aqua Teen Hunger Force and I start talking about the bomb scare that happened with the LED light bright. I think it was just after, and I talk about how that scare was, there was an overreaction from the Boston authorities. And then I say, but then again, there were 2 bombs, or 2 pipe bombs, that were sent to 2 addresses. One was in Kansas City, and the other one was in a place called 311 Wacker Drive. 311 Wacker Drive, and the zip code is 60606. 311s are 33, 666, 60606. I went up on those numbers for you. I thought it was rather odd. I thought it was rather odd that the bomb was sent in that location. Now, does anybody know where that location, what that building is? It's near the Sears Tower. It's right next door to the Sears Tower. I'm going to get into this in just a minute. How many know the address of the Sears Tower? It's 233 Wacker Drive. So there you have your 33 and you have your 23. The movie coming out right now, the number 23, it's all based on some weird psychotic break that Robert Anton Wilson had. But it's a fictional story. But see, the psychotic grid, the whole neurological grid, the psychotic break you have, you start seeing 23s, 33s, 666s everywhere, 444s everywhere. Everybody has that scotoma in their brain that sees some number all the time. Everybody has a lucky number. Everybody has a number that they're afraid of. Everybody has a number that means something in some way. 666, the mark of the beast. 9, the number of the Satanists. They believe that it's the end of the world number, the world that ends. We were just talking about this the other night over beers, weren't we?
We were having a big argument about it, weren't we? It's beautiful. See? It's right there in the zeitgeist. But these numbers keep coming up, and people have numbers they fear, numbers that they equate with meaning or what have you. And so I started spouting off the 311 Wacker Street, starting saying it was a 33, the 60606, 666. I said, I see a pattern here. It's a pattern, and I'm beginning to realize that what I'm noticing is a psyop, and I'll tell you why. How many people have seen the movie The Zodiac? Yeah. 2 or 3. Go see that movie, it's a great film. 3 hours of your life you'll never get back, and you'll want not to, because it's such a great film. I went and saw that movie, and I began to realize that I was witnessing a psyop similar to The Zodiac. How many people, and I bet none of you have, and so I'm going to be dropping the bomb here tonight. Ooh, don't want to use that phrase. How many people have heard of a bomber by the name of the Bishop? A couple of you have. The FBI has now issued a statement saying they're looking for a bomber who has sent pipe bombs to businesses. He calls himself the Bishop. The Bishop had sent, and I didn't know this, the Bishop was the person responsible for sending the bombs to 311 Wacker Street, 60606, and the Kansas City address. The Bishop was the man behind threatening letters and telling these financial institutions next to the Sears Tower that what they needed to do is they needed to change their stock prices to $6.66. Yeah. He wrote a threatening letter demanding that the stock prices be adjusted to $6.66. And he said that if they didn't comply, that he was going to bomb places all over the country. Now, this is just a story that's beginning. It's not quite in the mainstream yet, but the reason why I am fascinated with the story is because of the post that was on my Google blog featuring the February 5th show here at Ground Zero Lounge. And people all over the country have been writing me from Missouri, from New Jersey. People have been asking me to be on their MySpace page because they have seen this show and they're understanding what's going on here. The 311s, the 33s or the 23s, the 23s, and the 666 are all significant. Britney Spears carved that 666 in her head saying she was the Antichrist. And I talked about last week a cult in, I believe, Florida, who now has tattooed on their necks the number 666. They call themselves the Antichrist. The Bishop wants stocks to drop to $666 or $6.66. And he also quotes biblical scripture and writes letters like the Zodiac Killer did, like the Unabomber did. Now, how many people are familiar with the Zodiac Killer case by applause? Now, how many people know that the Zodiac Killer would first shot his victims, then stabbed his victims, and then he shot a cab driver. And then after he shot a cab driver, he wrote a letter to the Chronicle, San Francisco Chronicle, and in the letter he said that he would take out a school bus. He'd shoot out the tires, and then as the kids would walk off the bus, he'd shoot them one by one. Now when that didn't work, he decided that he was going to rig a bomb on a school bus. And he said that he was going to turn into a mad bomber. He was going to start bombing places. And what happened, there was a police station where a cop was killed in a bombing, and they thought that it was the Zodiac, and the Zodiac did not take responsibility for it. He said, I've not been able to figure out how to do bombs. Okay? But one thing he did do, he was able to blur the lines between regular criminality and domestic terrorism. And that's exactly what the Bishop is trying to do. The Bishop is doing the same thing the Unabomber did. He's doing the same thing. He's doing the same thing the Unabomber did, the same thing that the Zodiac Killer did. In fact, he may even be the Zodiac Killer because they never caught the Zodiac. The Zodiac could be making a debut nearly 30, 33, 34 years later. He is coming back, and this could very well be him. Something like that. He's coming back, and he may be doing this. He may be the new Zodiac. And wouldn't that be ironic that a movie's out right now, and they think they have their suspect in the movie. They mention a suspect, Arthur Lee Allen. But then this guy is doing the same thing the Zodiac did. He's talking about the Unabomber, John Lee Malvo, the DC snipers. He's talking about those guys too. Go ahead.
well, maybe he is the Zodiac, and maybe the Zodiac is a psyop so that they can keep alive a threat in our lives when there doesn't happen to be a handy one. And he'll live as long as Osama bin Laden, whom we all know is dead, etc.
That's a true point. Give her a hand. Yeah. I mean, think about it. After I went and saw that film, I had a discussion afterwards, and we had discussed that maybe the Zodiac wasn't just one killer, but a group of killers. What if the Zodiac was a code word for a group of killers that went out killing just to get people all scared and frightened? And what if the bishop is a psyop as well? And the way I know that he's a psyop, the way I figured it out he's a psyop, is this. First of all, the number sequences are a dead giveaway. That's too obvious to me. Because the son of Sam did number sequences, and he also quoted scripture, and he quoted all kinds of strange stuff. He called himself the wild Wicker Man of Wicker Drive, and this is on Wacker Street. It's really kind of odd that all this stuff's going on. Then he mentioned numbers, he mentioned the devil stuff, all that. So did the Unabomber. The Unabomber was a mathematician, and apparently the Zodiac used all sorts of numbers and symbols as well. And he sent letters to organizations making demands, silly demands, and he wanted people to jump up and down and put it in their papers and everything. When are we going to get to the point where we have another manifesto in the front page from a guy who calls himself the bishop? And you will not know where he moves. And his objective, what is a bishop's objective? To kill the king? Or to protect the king? And here's another thing that even gets me. How many people know, I don't think many of you do, I've been to Chicago, I know this. The building that's on 311 Wacker is known as the White Castle Building. Because it has a crown on top of it like a rook in a chessboard.
And it looks like White Castle Hamburger Place.
The White Castle Hamburger Place, exactly. You been to Chicago?
Yes.
Yes. See, he knows he's been to Chicago. It looks like a rook. I have a picture of it in my forum. It looks like the rook on a chessboard. So the bishop made an attack on the rook. Now, isn't that just right out of the PSYOPs page? Isn't that what Larry was talking about with Brzezinski saying?
The chessboard.
The chessboard. And we talk about how they can make movements without you even knowing, and who are the pawns and who are the knights and who are the ones that are making all the decisions for that final objective, which is the king kill, or the fall of the queen, or whatever. Checkmate. This is how they operate. They operate on a grid, and they think this way. Whether you're a killer or a person who's into PSYOPs, that's how they operate. That's why you see little trails being left behind, like Manson when he said, go in when you kill those people and do something witchy. Write something on the board in their blood. Write piggies or something. Find something that's innocuous that he was inspired by, like a Beatles album, Revolution #9. Find that. That's amazing. That'll get people thinking. They're saying now that the bishop has been inspired by a Charles Bronson film called The Mechanic, where a guy by the name of Andrew Bishop, the character, receives a bomb that says, time's up, or you're dead, or bang bang. It's just like what the bishop's doing. However, I found another innocuous thing that he may be inspired by, and that is a Monty Python bit. How many people are familiar with the Flying Circus and the bishop? It's about a bishop that shows up at a church right before a vicar is about to explode. And what's really odd is in the beginning, and you can go online and look at this, just type into YouTube, go to, write in Monty Python, the bishop sequence. They have this opening credit that's hilarious. The opening credit is, you see a cross, it comes up and it's spinning around, and then all of a sudden it makes a circle with a cross in the middle of it. Like the Zodiac. And then you see this bishop walking around as people are about to explode. Right before the bomb goes off. It's just amazing the way they can find something innocuous and pin up, just like Catcher in the Rye, Jodie Foster. All these things that inspire people to go and kill.
All right, well, how do you reconcile...
Go ahead, come on the microphone. Go ahead.
All right, fine.
We need your voice on the internet.
How do you reconcile... Bertolt Brecht and Michael Tausig have pointed out that the state of emergency has now become the norm as opposed to the exception. And the things that you're talking about imply a lot of players who are at some level are pawns for the real powers behind them. How do you reconcile how these pawns are being recruited and employed by the powers that are directing these overall systemic levels of integration?
Go ahead, Larry. Go ahead and
Yeah, I was just going to answer the question because it loops back to what we were saying before, sex slaves. They start with the youth and they ingrain them in the depravity of being slaves for sexual favors of the political elite.
Well, and you saw the Jesus Camp, Bill, before we showed it. I mean, you saw how those kids were programmed to fight for Jesus. If you are given a cause, and you're told that this cause is the most important thing ever, and you're programmed into fighting for it, you'll do anything to keep it going. That's what Al-Qaeda does. And our government does the same thing. I mean, the CIA is full of guys who believe in the company and want to carry out what the company tells them to do for the furthering of the common good, or the better good. I mean, we all have belief systems that we will fight for. We all have our ways of being programmed to do, eating this applesauce and drinking the Kool-Aid. It's the cult mentality, it's the dynamic, it's that whole idea that you can psychologically take a whole group of people and program them into believing a story if it furthers the agenda of the kings or the group. It's like I was talking about 9/11 last week, and I said, how many times have we had that loop going over and over again in our head for the only reason of that whipping mentality? Where we're going to show it to me again, am I going to go, oh my God, I'm afraid again? You know, it's like right after that Sears Tower, for example, talking about Sears Tower, people did not want to buy any office space in that tower because of the fear of being hit by planes, or the fear of a bomber, or the fear of all those. And now, a bomb has been sent to that general area, and it's still causing trouble. And the people who own that building, the people who did the security for that building, are the same people that owned and did the security for the World Trade Center. Marvin Bush, the Krill Company, all these people are all tied in with the same groups of people taking over a building, saying that we're protected, and then we have mad bombers like the bishop going around, sending things through the mail, and having them go to their intended targets, not exploding or anything, but at least creating that fear that you'll get a special package from that bomber. And a nice letter telling you either comply or he'll blow you up. It goes right back to the anthrax scares. And who was sending the white powder to people. Said, I knew you're going to get a surprise in the mail and it's not going to be something, you know. I lived through the Mark Hoffman days in Salt Lake City, Utah. Mark Hoffman was a forger for the Mormon Church. He forged documents, and he sold documents to people in the business area, downtown Salt Lake, and I lived up in the avenues. And one day Mark Hoffman got in his car and one of the bombs exploded right down the street from my house. Hoffman was the mad Mormon bomber, and he was the guy that went and took people out with bombs as well. And they were just simple bombs with simple triggers, and it was very easy to wipe out a number of people that he wanted to silence. It was very easy to make his moves without being detected. The bishop is a very fascinating story when you take a look at the idea that this character is out now with the Zodiac out in theaters. I mean, he may not have made the mainstream yet, but I'm giving you the story before it makes the big mainstream. If this guy takes out somebody, then you probably are hearing it first here. And you're aware of it here. I'm getting a lot of mail from people who are afraid of this guy. A lot of people who are writing me telling me that they can't believe that no one's talking about it. And I said, well, maybe it's because they don't want to raise a panic for a guy who hasn't killed anybody yet. But the idea that you can get a bomb in the mail, pretty frightening. And the idea that all the numbers seem to check out. I was blown away when I read that he wanted to adjust the stocks to $6.66. When I'm going off, like the month before, say, 60, 606, 666, 911, 311, 23, you look at me. I can throw numbers out there and everybody's getting all spooked. Well, then I got spooked. I got spooked because all the things I had talked about were happening in the news, from the Kennedy files being revealed, to Cheney being at the 33rd parallel when that bomb went off, and 23 people were killed, the bishop being a bomber taking out the Rook, trying to take out the Rook. What better place to attack but one of the tallest buildings in America, 65 stories. One of the 50th tallest buildings
in the world he would want to attack. And I don't think it'll stop there. It's not going to stop there. There are going to be people that are going to be freaking out because it's just going to get to the point where they can't handle it. Britney Spears carving a 666 into her head should tell you something. What made her nuts?
Drugs and K-Fed?
Drugs and K-Fed? Or the fact that she was raised in this illusion. She was raised in that Disneyland world, that hyper-reality world. She was a mouseketeer.
Celebrity without success.
What's that?
Celebrity without the success.
Right. She was given celebrity without the success. And everybody said, oh, she had hit records. Well, how many of those hit records are saving her now as she's driving a sheet around her head wanting to off herself? Go ahead.
Do you know what's going on in the, we've got all this stuff going on, but I'm just curious if you know, because I don't know, what's going on with the Scooter Libby deliberations, whether guilty or not guilty.
I don't either.
You know?
No. I don't know anything about the Scooter Libby thing.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
They got shuffled off to the margins. Again.
I mean, I think we've beaten that story to death here. Oh, we already know what the outcome's going to be, because we've already talked about the outcome. Same as all the outcome with these guys. It's all a big fanfare that some justice is going to be done. And that, I mean, what were you talking about? You're talking about the Democrats, and you're talking about how, oh, it was so wonderful that we got the Democrats in office, so big smile. But now the illusion is also beginning to lift there. How many people heard Hillary Clinton at that Kentucky gathering today?
Super bullshit.
Super bullshit? Yes.
Super bullshit.
I mean, that Southern drawl and that whole routine that she did was embarrassing.
Makes you cringe.
It's just embarrassing. If she wins the presidency, I think Canada looks good right about now.
She won't though.
Let's hope not.
She won't.
Who do you think is going to be president, Giuliani? Is that what you're saying?
Actually,
Can a guy who has 3 wives, or has had 3 wives, be president of the United States?
Brigham Young ran,
well,
and he had 27.
And you
He didn't make it. He didn't make it. Well, what about Mitt Romney? He's a Mormon.
But he's from Michigan.
What's that?
He's from Michigan.
He's from Michigan.
Great Lakes State. It's
Great Lakes
okay.
State. Are you from Michigan?
Yes.
And Edwards? What about
Oh,
Edwards?
John Edwards.
Yeah, John Edwards.
Oh, what? Now, who was it was telling me that John Edwards is going to get the election because of this whole faggot remark? You were? Somebody told me that because of Arnold Coltrane and his, Ann Coulter, and her, you've heard that, right? That Arnold Coltrane is actually Ann Coulter, a pig farmer from Oklahoma or something?
Right.
That she has a dick? I mean, only Sean Hannity knows for sure, right? We should have Sean, somebody should call Sean Hannity and say, so, did you really see the penis? Did you actually see it? Just want to know. You've heard that story about Sean Hannity and Ann Coulter. They were in their car. They were in a car, and one night Sean Hannity wanted to see if Ann was really a guy. So he's like driving down the road, and he starts drifting off, and Ann's going, Sean, you're heading off the road, Sean. They're getting closer to the cliff. Sean, goddamn, give me the wheel. Sean found out for sure that Ann Coulter was a guy. Go ahead. Nick, go ahead, save me.
That's very rude.
Oh, okay. What should I do?
Ann Coulter is the loveliest horse I've ever seen.
Okay.
BBC has a rebuttal to your comments.
What's the BBC's rebuttal?
It's more cock-up than conspiracy. And
Cock-up? What?
Cock-up.
Cock-up. Oh, I thought you said cock-up.
Cock-up.
Oh.
With a hyphen.
Okay.
And then if American corporations paid taxes like American individuals suspended their disbelief, we'd have no deficit.
All right. But go back to that cock-up from the BBC.
And
Explain yourself. You're coming after me. Explain yourself. How is it that it's cock-up?
Ann Coulter is a very pretty horse.
Is it a very pretty horse?
Winnie!
A clothes horse.
There we go.
For which stable?
But, I mean, the political circus doesn't interest me anymore because it just, it's just horrifying to see all this going on. How many people think it's a circus by applause? I mean, vote for this clown, vote for that clown, and we all have a big circus.
And they all have the face of death.
We're all on this merry-go-round. They all have the face of death, that's right. They all want the war to continue. Don't let them think that they don't. They do, because there's money in the war. Yes, it's true. Go ahead.
I don't know how many times I've said this before, but it's an appropriate time to say it again. I'm so sick and tired of everybody everywhere just saying, oh, well, I don't want the Republican to win, so I'm voting for the Democrat. And then you have, oh, I don't like the Democrat, so I'm voting for the Republican. Fuck it, they're both the same. If you don't like any of them, then don't vote for any of them. If you can't figure it out, then screw whatever it is, the qualifications for the office or the position or whatever. Just, find a little section that says write in and just write your own name in.
You for president. There you go. Good job.
Vote Michael Savage.
Oh, Michael Savage.
I'm thinking, as far as the president, what best horse is running in September, October of 2008 would probably win the president. Coming that close to November of 2008. Whatever horse is running strong, he's probably going to win. George Bush, in a debate, live debate against Kerry, said two of the stupidest things I've ever heard that the media never attacked him on. Number one, he goes, about the war in Iraq, he goes, "It's my war." Number two, he goes, "I know how the world works." I don't know how you can say things like that, not in an interview with a magazine, but on national television, in a debate against the Democratic presidential nominee, and get away with it, and still be elected a month later. So it's a strong...
Which comes back to my motto. If you act like a dumb shit, they'll treat you as an equal. It's true. If you act like a dumbass, man, they'll think, hey, another dumbass. There's another dumbass who wants to vote for that dumbass. There's another asshat over here that'll vote for this idiot.
My war.
Yeah. It's his war, it's my war, we're all together now. Yay!
Like
happy damn family. Dad's doing a good job for country. Yeah.
Remember John Kerry when he came up? Oh, Kerry reporting for duty.
Yeah, something like that. If he looks good on camera and if he fits the illusion, people will vote for the son of a bitch. And I can't believe people are arguing amongst themselves over an election that's so far away, that they're starting up so soon. It's almost like we blur the lines between celebrity and politician. And after they're done being celeb politician, they'll be able to market books and lectures and everything. It's getting to the point now, it's kind of like putting the Christmas decorations out in April in hopes that people remember, oh yeah, we gotta buy Christmas presents. It's the same principle. And I don't know why people aren't seeing it for what it is. It's all parading these clowns out there. And pretty soon, by the time the election goes around, no one's gonna give a shit. No one's gonna care. I'm already to that point where I don't give a shit.
America's closed.
Yes. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is going to be the first multi-billion-dollar election. That's enough said.
Sure.
It is.
Oh, they'll spend billions of dollars of taxpayers' money and corporate funding. But again, the point is why is it going on? It's for pretext and distraction because there are some important decisions that are being made. And the illusion is that there is a democratic process playing itself out. A lot of Americans will say, oh yeah, this is where the land of the free, where we get involved in elections. And oh yeah, who's going to win, just like a horse race. But the fact is that it's a very, very cynical reality. I mean, they did the same thing in the ex-Soviet Union. They'd bring out the candidates, they'd have the clowns, they'd have the circuses and the bread, but it's all just a distraction from what's really going on.
They did the same thing in Argentina after their terrorist war. They did the same thing. They brought in a candidate that everybody loved, who wasn't a Peronist. He didn't last long. And then what happened? Their economy went in the shitter, and they had to redo their money all over again. Because they thought that this guy would be a Band-Aid for all of their problems. The problems we have here in America are not going to be taken care of with a quick fix. The illusion that we're living in is not going to be gone overnight. The illusion that America is the same as it was after 9/11 is a fallacy. It's not the same country. And the only way we can bring it back to the way it was is to eliminate that programming, that fear programming we had running through our heads. And being nice to people that are still having a hard time getting along with the program. They're not nice to you. They're not nice to you when you try to tell the truth and they try to shut you down and you hear the eyes rolling around in their heads. The people who aren't getting with the program and figuring out that the motions that we go through again are going to bring about the same result. And as Einstein said, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, you're insane. We are not insane, and we are not the crazy ones. The crazy ones are the ones filing in with the programming that they've had given to them through television and radio and all the other bullshit that they're trying to push onto you. And I'm talking both Air America and Rush Limbaugh and Fox. Both of them. Both of them are just pushing you and pulling you and telling you there's a red state and a blue state. There's not. It's the state against you is what it is, and it's going to continue to be that way. The state is against you. When are you going to realize this? When are you going to realize that you're a part of the programming too if you keep going along with what they tell you? Your cubicle cell that you go to every day and the work that you go to every day, they do the same thing to you. Why? Because it's part of the smaller area that makes the larger hell. We have human resources, we've got human dynamics, we've got organizational psychology majors. We have all these people telling you how to march to those tones and those tunes and marching to that rap or marching to that country song. That Toby Keith bullshit that you hear all the time going, American men fighting the war, my daddy lost his dick, I can't sing anymore. I don't give a fuck about Toby Keith. Fuck you, Toby Keith. Kiss my rosy American ass, you fucking idiot. Fuck. Fuck. Go ahead.
There is, there is one group within the United States right now that really presents an alternative reality to the cultural construction of the state that has been presented to us. And that is the Native American groups that have somehow managed to maintain individual identity and sovereignty against the force of Western civilization and against the force of even the United States itself. And I think one place that you can really put a lot of support and you can focus your energy in terms of supporting an idea that's going to be counterproductive to the aims of our systematic, reduction of our rights is by supporting these individual nations, sovereign nations within the United States. I live in Denver, Colorado. I'm here in Portland visiting right now.
Thank you for coming out.
Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
I'm just a tourist here in Portland, but in Wyoming and Colorado, we have a lot of people, the Cheyenne people, Shoshone people, who have shown an unbelievable amount of resistance to assimilation and to colonialization. And they continue right now today to show individual identity against the overpowering homogenization of hegemony. They have, some of them have casinos, but hell yeah, dude. Fuck, give everyone casinos in the Indian Nation, in my mind. Because the more money they can steal from white people back,
Ground Zero Casino.
they will be, never in our lifetime will they take enough money back from white people and the rest of Americans, in my mind. But regardless of that,
Right.
they have a lot of great ideas about how we can move forward in terms of progressing as humanity, in terms of the global world that we live in, as opposed to the global world of Dick Cheney and George Bush. And I think that's the thing. We have people within our midst that we can look to as resources and something to support.
It's funny you should bring this up. I had a conversation with a guy today over coffee. It was the most amazing conversation. How many people are familiar with Burning Man? By applause. How many people know how big? Well, Stevie, come here, buddy. You went last year?
Last 2 years.
Okay. I want you to talk about Burning Man because I want to prove a point here.
Stevie went to Burning. Give Stevie a hand. He's our sound guy. Stevie, talk to us about Burning Man.
I've been the last 2 years. I'll be going again this year. So.
Okay.
I know.
What do you do at Burning Man?
You live. You actually get to like freely live.
Do you drink a lot?
I drank my first year. You actually don't have to drink that much because it's like 4,000 feet in elevation, so you get drunk really easily.
Do you smoke dope?
I don't personally, but people do.
Okay. Do you get laid?
Yes. I got pictures.
You got pictures?
On my cell phone.
All right. Well, you want to see the cell phone pictures? Line up at the soundboard later. Okay. So you get laid, you get drunk, you can eat. There's a lot of food, right?
Yeah.
They have their own self-sustaining doctor's office. Am I correct?
Yes.
They have their own.
There's a few of them. There's like the main medical tent, and then there's 2 other ones on outskirts.
How many days does that last?
It's a week long.
They have their own water.
No, you
have to
bring your own water. You bring your own water.
They bring your own water. And it's all because you all want to get together, enjoy art, listen to music, get laid, and drink a lot, right?
It's mainly a big artist festival.
It's an arts festival, right?
And it's also about putting together like temporary community, and you got to be self-sufficient. The only things you can purchase there, well, besides the illegal drugs, but the only things you can actually purchase there are ice, and there's a cafe where you can purchase like coffee, tea, and stuff like that. But you can't buy any food. You have to bring everything yourself. And actually, military has done studies on this because it's a leave no trace event. It becomes the 3rd largest city in Nevada for that 1 week of the year.
3rd largest city in Nevada for that 1 week of the year.
There was 40,000 people there this year.
3rd largest city in the United States for that time.
In Nevada.
In Nevada?
Yeah, 3rd largest city in Nevada for that 1 week of the year.
3rd largest city in Nevada.
40,000 people.
40,000 people.
And they leave no trace.
Right. Okay, so if we can just convince you that you're going to get laid, you're going to get drugs, and you're going to see a lot of art, we can take over the White House. I'm not kidding.
And leave no trace.
And leave no trace.
Leave no trace.
Let's hear it for fucking Burning Man.
Burning Man.
You see what I'm talking about? How is it that something as simple as going out in the desert where there's sunshine and sweat and sex and drugs and rock and roll and nudity, people will go in droves to go to that? How many people are going to go and do that to take care of the freedom that we're missing here in the United States? They go out in the desert and do it because no one's going to bother them out there with the rattlesnakes, the coyotes, and the jackalopes. No one's going to bother them out there.
Yeah, I mean, there is a fair share of law enforcement officers that are around, but they mostly leave us alone. As long as, like you're not doing anything like right up there in the open, you definitely respect people's boundaries, and people do bring their children there too. There is like a family aspect. And
right.
So, there's people from all walks of life, every single walk of life. You name it, it's there.
Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Nazis, freaks, you name it, are all there in that one place. And they all are for one mind, and they're all for one idea. And that's to have fun, get drunk, get laid, and watch some art, and listen to music.
Live life for a week.
Live life for a week.
When you show up there, they say, welcome home.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, welcome home.
So how is it that we can't do it for something as big as maybe getting the Constitution back, or something idealistic like that?
Clyde, Burning Man is Bohemian Grove for the peasants. Wake up, you fucking liberals. No.
Yes, Nicholas.
Can I have some applause for Molek?
For Molek? Oh, let's give a little bit of a golf clap for Molek. Yeah, for Molek.
Little cremation of care.
That is so great. It's so great. You see that it can be done. Burning Man can be done. But burning, it's got to have the burning in the soul first in order for you to move forward and do that. You got to believe in it enough. And like I said, they're not going to be nice to you. It's a wonder that it's a wonder that politics can put that divide into people. It's a wonder that the ideal of having an America where you can say welcome home is the objective and have that stick. You don't have to go out to the desert to do it. You can do it right here in your own home. We do it right here in the Ground Zero Lounge. We do it here at the Ground Zero Lounge. Where people, they all come together, liberals, conservatives, Christians, atheists, anarchists, they're all together here in this room, and we all talk about what's on our minds, no matter how crazy it may be, but we do it. Because we have that burning in us to do that. We want to use our voices as weapons of choice because that is what we're choosing to do here. And it may be weird and crazy, and yeah, I'm sure that the media doesn't want us to talk about how we decided to take control of our own lives and think for ourselves. We decided to have that spirit of Burning Man, that spirit of getting together, that spirit where we have that righteous indignation, where we want to talk, speak up, and we want to get off our chest the shit that's buried deep down inside of us that we want to release. That is the important thing right now. No, we don't want to take guns. We don't want to do some strange idealistic revolution, but what we want to do is we want to gather together with one mind and one heart, and we want to pull together and make things happen and realize that it's healthy to talk about this stuff, no matter how crazy it might be.
Okay, and another thing about Burning Man, like, I never officially graduated from high school, but there was a woman that was there this year, and she runs a private school, and anybody that wanted a diploma did not graduate high school, she would give it to them, and it's a legal diploma. And before we did it, I asked her, what's the test? She's like, here you are, you're out here, you're surviving, that's the test, you passed.
Wow.
And they used to bring guns. So, in the early days, it was drive-by shooting ranges, but it got too big, so they had to get rid of the guns.
It can be done. It can be done. We can think ourselves into a better life. We can think ourselves into a life where we do feel like we're at home. We can think ourselves into a better America. We can think ourselves into choosing better leaders. Not ones that say that they are leaders just because they make more money than you or me. They still have morals that aren't like ours. They don't represent you, and they don't represent me. They kill thousands of people. They ruin thousands of people's lives every day. They take away their homes, they take away their livelihoods, and they try and break you down. They want to keep you on the brink of starvation because they know that you will work and you will slave your life away for that measly dollar you make. That is the Orwellian nightmare that we're living now, and we can think ourselves out of it if we just work together and use the spirit around us of the unity, the unified thought that we can pull out of this shit. Otherwise, we're going to wind up shaving our heads and putting that 666 on our foreheads. We're going to wind up like the beauty queen that fell. We're going to wind up like all the other bastards that were taken in by the illusion and then chewed up and spit out. And who's going to help them up? The same people that are going to help you up. No one. You need to do it yourself. I'm Clyde Lewis. This is Ground Zero Lounge. Good night, Carrie. This is Hell on Deck.